Trina, thanks for being with us. Events are developing quickly there. What's the latest?
You know, it's very tense on the wharf down in Saulnieville and the other wharves around St. Mary's Bay. There was 2 arrests made earlier today by RCMP in Weymouth, which is not that much further from Saulnieville, which is where the Sabaganagadi Band has their boats. So Weymouth is down the road. There was an altercation. 2 people were arrested for assault. They were then released, and charges haven't been laid yet because the RCMP are still investigating. So we don't know who those 2 individuals were, if they were Mi'kmaq or non-Mi'kmaq fishermen down there, or even if they were men or women. So at this point, not a lot of detail. But the RCMP are investigating a series of complaints related to mischief, shots being fired, and uttering threats. So there's a lot going on. It's really ramping up. And you know, yesterday, the Sabaganagadi Band decided to drop traps. They had a ceremony. The mood was very celebratory. Mi'kmaq had come from all over the province to witness this, kicking off of a moderate livelihood fishery. But by yesterday afternoon, there was a lot of tension. Non-Mi'kmaq fishermen, out on the boats, dozens of boats out on the water, sort of trying to keep the Mi'kmaq from dropping traps, cutting traps that were dropped in the water. And now today, these arrests. And so the chiefs in Nova Scotia, the Mi'kmaq chiefs, have actually declared a state of emergency because of the violence and because of the political unrest. And they're calling on the RCMP to protect their Mi'kmaq fishermen and anyone who's down there supporting the fishermen. So it's very tense. And I'm just looking at the state of emergency. They have it till September 22nd. Not a lot of details on what that means necessarily, the state of emergency, but that they have it until September 22nd with the possibility of an extension, because other bands also have management plans and are also planning to drop traps. I've heard October 1st, which is Treaty Day, to kick off their moderate livelihood fisheries. So this is going to keep going, and we have Angel Moore on the ground right now in Saulnieville, but this is a story we're going to be covering for a long time.
That is a lot going on. Let's take a step back, though. You've been covering this story for 2 decades. What's important for people to understand here?
You know, I think that what's really important is just, that this is not an illegal fishery, that the Mi'kmaq have a treaty right that was upheld by the Supreme Court of Canada to earn a moderate livelihood, to make a living from the resources, so fishing, hunting, and gathering. And so, the problem is that Canada hasn't implemented that decision, that they have no rules around a moderate livelihood fishery. And so in the eyes of DFO, and certainly in the eyes of the non-Mi'kmaq fish harvesters down there, they're calling it an illegal fishery. There's some concerns about, conservation. There's a rhetoric around conservation, I should say, because the science doesn't back that up. Like the lobster stocks in St. Mary's Bay, where the Sabaganagadi Band is fishing, are healthy, and DFO's own science shows that. But it's kind of been this battle cry. It was a battle cry in Burnt Church by the non-Mi'kmaq fishermen, and you still hear it today. But it's just not true. And the danger with that language is it kind of creates a narrative that the Mi'kmaq are doing something wrong. And so we have to be really careful, because what really needs to happen is that Canada needs to implement the Marshall decision.
There are larger implications here. Trina, can you briefly tell us a bit about those?
Yeah, just really briefly, this is not just a story about fishing on the East Coast. It's not just a story about lobster. This is a story about how Canada handles treaty rights. And there's negotiation tables across the country, inherent rights or inherent framework agreements, and so this is important to everybody. This is because this really speaks to how Canada handles Aboriginal and treaty rights. If they're not implemented, if they're ignoring a court decision after 21 years, what does that sort of mean? I mean, Indigenous people have a lot of wins in court, but if they're not being implemented into law, then what does that mean? So it's something people should pay attention to. And this story is not, like I said, it's unfolding. We're going to be watching very carefully to see what happens next.
Trina, I appreciate you joining us here to give us a broader context on what's taking place.
All right, thank you, Dennis.